Hello gardeners, hello students of Hauk Elementary. I just wanted to check in with you, show you how well your garden's doing. I've came out here a few times to get some of the weeds taken care of out here, and I still have tons to take care of. Like, I'll show you my weedy patch. And weeding is something that you guys could all be doing in your garden if you've got one. And there's a few new plants in here. We've got some color now this time of year. It looks different, doesn't it, from when we last saw each other, which I think was the middle of March. And I think just at that time, this geum was just starting to bloom. And look at it now. So a few other things that are in bloom right now that you can keep an eye out for. This is a common favorite for a lot of people. It's called a marigold. Then I've got another type of marigold here, just a little bit different. So I just planted a bunch of these, and then I finally finished planting your nasturtiums. So these will have flowers that you can eat. So who would have thought about that? A flower that you can eat. And then another one that I just added. I'll show you the flower right there. Now that is called a Fringe Cup. And this is one that's native to our forests. You'll find it sometimes out in like an open meadow area in a forest. And then what else did I plant in here? Oh, I see one just right back here. And this here is another Northwest native, and it's called a canna. And cannas, they like a little bit more of a wetter climate, but we thought we'd try these here and just see how well they would do. And then here's one more native. And when I say native, that means that it's been here since the dawn of time. It's been here for a really long time, whereas some of these plants out here are not native, but this is a native carex. Let's see if I can focus in. That's seed pod, or it's flower. It looks like more of it's flower instead. So you'll see lots of grasses are actually in bloom right now. I say we planted at the end of February was when we planted these. And here's one example. Take a good look at this leaf. Now this would be a great leaf to do a leaf rubbing. And this is called a salmonberry. So these are going to have berries, just like raspberries. They're going to have berries on them, and they are going to be almost like a yellow color. You've got one. Here's another one. And then here is a different type of berry. Now look at that. Has a much bigger leaf. It doesn't have so much of a woody stem. Now this is called a thimbleberry, just like a thimble that you put on your finger. The type of berry actually that we planted it for the birds. We planted all of these berries for the birds, more or less. But look how similar this leaf is. This is called a currant, so it's got a much smaller leaf. It blooms much earlier, but look at those little teeny currants. And they'll attract all the different types of birds in this area. And these are all native berries. This is one here. So I've got 3 different types here. Got the currant, thimbleberry, and then this here is that salmonberry. So keep an eye out. Even if you go on a hike or if you walk around in your neighborhood, you might be able to see some of these different types of berries, but you'll definitely see them here in our garden. All right, Garden Club, this will be your supplemental video that talks about the 3 different types of berries that we have in our garden. And remember, I told you that they are native berries, and they all will produce fruit at some point, which will be food for the birds to attract our native birds. So the first berry that I talked about, now we've got to pay attention to the leaf structure, but that was the salmonberry, and actually that was the first leaf that I had on that towel for you. That's the salmonberry that's in our garden. A few things that I want to point out to you is that look at those teeth on those leaves. And also pay attention that there to the fact that there is 1, 2, and 3 leaflets. And then along this stem here, sometimes you'll find some teeny little thorns. But that's your first key in identifying this berry in the spring, because it doesn't have fruit and it doesn't have flowers yet. But its flower looks just like this. This is a salmonberry flower. So things to pay attention to is the number of petals. So we've got how many there? 5 petals. And then pay attention to that color of the flower. So that's the name of it, salmonberry. And so it gets its name because of its distinct color. And so later on in the summer, early summer, you will start to see some of these berries. They're much smaller, and they just have this really beautiful golden color to them. So that was the first berry that we saw in the garden. Very different from this berry. So things to notice with this leaf. And this would be our thimbleberry. So this is just one solid leaf. It doesn't have leaflets like what we saw with the 3 leaflets here, but it's a solid leaf, a simple leaf is what these are called. And it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 tips to it. And also note that it has the little teeth along the edges. So you got to pay attention to those things. And then later on in the spring, once the thimbleberry blooms, you'll see these flowers. And so what would you have thought of that? It's got 5 petals. See if you can count the 5 petals, just like this salmonberry has 5 petals. But these petals are a little bit more round. And then later on in the summer, you'll see these little teeny thimbleberries. And they're called thimbleberries because they're much more flatter than a salmonberry. So, and they've got that bright, vibrant red color. Then the last one, the last plant that we took a look at and we found in our garden, and this is the one that's got the tomato cage with those ribbons around it to protect it, but that would be our flowering currant. So notice that this leaf is a little different. It's got 5 tips to it. Do you see the 5 tips? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But it doesn't have quite as many teeth. So very different than the teeth on the edges of this leaf. This is what we would call a smooth edge. And the leaves are much, much smaller as well. But then, this one's already bloomed in our garden. And if you watch the video, it also has fruits on it right now. They're not ready yet, but they will be. Probably within the next couple of weeks, they will be ready for the birds to eat them. But the reason why I planted this plant in the garden is because it's one of the first ones to bloom, and our bees, our native bees that come out a little early, our native pollinators, love this plant, especially our mason bees. So we just added the mason bee habitat to the garden in the spring, and this is food for those pollinators. And like I said, right now we've got berries on this currant in the garden, but they're not quite ready. This is a ready one. This is about what our currants look like right now. So if you pick them and eat them right now, they're going to be a little sour. And just a little project that you can do when you're at home, so you can start paying attention to different types of leaves that you can find in the garden, is to collect leaves and make leaf rubbings. And then you can write down in a little booklet like what I made, you can write down the leaf type, you can write down the leaf description, and then you can make a little leaf rubbing. So try that at home. Leave some comments if you have any questions. I can also post these photos online so you could have some material to reference. So just let us know if you'd like to have some printouts, and we can make that happen for you so you have some educational material of all of these different types of native berries that you'll see in our butterfly garden. Thanks, guys.